Chinese students gathered in Tiananmen Square demanding freedom and democracy in April 1989. Civilians from all walks of life joined them, and the movement quickly spread to other cities in China. It was the first time in 40 years of communist rule that citizens gathered and demanded freedom at a national level. The Chinese regime had never felt so threatened. However, U.S. President George H.W. Bush's weak position and leniency toward the communist leaders after the Tiananmen massacre rescued the regime from a self-inflicted wound. The CCP survived a major existential crisis. Many Chinese had since lost hope, feeling that freedom was only a dream. In a way, when the free world failed to stand with the Chinese people in defending their freedom, we helped shape China into what it is today, and it's coming back to haunt us. Hello, welcome to leisrealtalk. I'm Lei. In his 2007 book, The China Diary, Bush wrote, "I love the Chinese people. One of my dreams for our world is that these two powerful giants will continue working toward a full partnership and friendship." Bush's mistake exemplifies one major misconception the West has about China. It confuses China and the Chinese people with the CCP or the Chinese Communist Party. The Chinese Communist Party does not equate to China or its people, nor does it represent them. Bush confused his love for Chinese people with his fondness of the communist leaders. The same mistake has been repeated in the past 2 decades. It's time the West recognize its misconception about China, Chinese people, and the CCP. China is a nation with a continuously recorded history of 5,000 years. Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism have a great influence on the people and their culture, which is rooted in the harmony of heaven, earth, and man. That's been Chinese people's way of life for thousands of years. By contrast, the CCP has a history of only 100 years and is a foreign entity that originated in Europe and Russia. The communist ideology promotes revolution, class struggle, and violence, which are totally incompatible with traditional Chinese culture. There's no way that the CCP can represent China or its people. But one of the CCP's tactics is to confuse these concepts. So whenever someone is critical of the party or its leader, its followers immediately accuse you of being anti-China and against the Chinese people, or even call you xenophobic. If George Bush Sr. loved the Chinese people as he claimed, he would have based his policy and decision on what's good for the people, not what's good for the regime. He would have realized that the two don't share any common goals or values and often oppose each other. Maybe you will say this can't be. Of course Chinese people support their government. Who in China would dare oppose the CCP? Most Chinese don't have anything good to say about the CCP. They just keep it to themselves and go about their business in order to get by. From the lessons they've learned by living through the Tiananmen Square massacre, for example, they know that the opposite of the official rhetoric is true. Chinese have in fact developed a reverse psychology for dealing with the CCP. This is something the West often has ignored and doesn't seem to get. So this reverse psychology has created an interesting phenomenon. Whatever the CCP opposes inevitably becomes popular, and whatever it promotes inevitably generates quiet resistance because the opposite is true. For example, a few months ago, the Chinese regime launched a media campaign calling on citizens to boycott Western brands that had distanced themselves from Xinjiang cotton due to human rights concerns. Instead, Chinese rushed to the stores to stock up on boycotted brands Nike and Adidas like there was no tomorrow, while the brands offered deep discounts. The text on a social media video said, "I thank my motherland for giving me the chance to afford brand names." The Chinese believe that the boycott enabled them to afford Nike shoes. Another convincing story is that of Falun Gong, the Chinese mind-body spiritual practice that has been persecuted for more than 20 years. Falun Gong came to the public in 1992 in China. Due to its tremendous health benefits and positive impact on spiritual growth, it attracted between 70 to 100 million followers, according to the government's own estimate. However, this number exceeded the 65 million Communist Party members at the time. Falun Gong's popularity caused intense paranoia in the Chinese Communist leader Jiang Zemin. He launched a campaign to eradicate Falun Gong in 1999. People were forced to give up the practice or else be expelled from school, kicked out of their workplace, imprisoned in labor camps and mental institutions, or face involuntary organ harvesting. Outside China, the regime also spread lies through the media and their consulates to attack the practice. However, what's most interesting is that Falun Gong has since grown ever more popular. In 1999, when the persecution just started, people outside China hadn't heard about Falun Gong. Today, Falun Gong has spread to over 80 countries around the world on all 5 continents. I went to Falun Gong website, and I must say I had never seen any website that offers as many languages as the Falun Gong website. I think there must be 3 dozens. The main book of Falun Gong, Zhuan Falun, has been translated into over 40 languages and published in 20. All of this took place during the 2 decades of brutal persecution. It again proves that whatever the CCP attacks or slanders always gets people's attention and becomes popular because they know it's something good for them. On the other hand, whatever the CCP promotes is quietly opposed because it's not what people want. Look at the 3-child policy that the regime recently announced to address China's fast-aging population. It's being met with a social resistance movement in China called lying down or lying flat. Chinese netizens define the lying down movement as not owning a house or car, not getting married or having children, no job, no major consumption, just maintaining a bare minimum survival state. Because of the high cost of living, high housing prices, harsh work conditions, lack of jobs, unfair competition, and corruption, young Chinese refuse to be someone else's money-making machine and are choosing a lifestyle that minimizes material possessions and desires. Although the official media criticized the movement as shameful, poems with the theme lying flat have gone viral on the Chinese internet. Most of them reflect young people's belief that if they can't stand tall or sit straight, if they don't want to bow or kneel, their choice is to lie flat. They say that lying flat is standing tall horizontally because their spine is still straight. In a quiet way, they are standing up to the CCP. I often hear Westerners say, "We love China, we shouldn't be critical of its leaders." Well, if you love China, you should speak out for the Chinese people. They want you to be the voice for the voiceless. Otherwise, they have no hope. The West needs to understand the antagonistic relationship between the CCP and the Chinese people. If we don't wake up now, perhaps we'll find out one day that we have no choice but to lie flat as well. You can watch my video on how China is addressing its population crisis by clicking here. And here is the first video of the China Misconceptions series. Please share and subscribe. Thank you.